Wouldn't it be great to have a never-ending harvest of leafy greens? In this video, I'm going to show you my best practices for how to harvest your leafy greens in the spring and the fall, and doing it in a way that makes sure that those plants continue to produce throughout the rest of that growing season. Now, I've been growing in these container beds for 7 years now, and growing leafy greens in the cooler months are one of my favorite vegetables to grow, and that's because you really are able to harvest all throughout the season. Right now, it's the beginning of April. I planted these from seed at the very beginning of March, and I started harvesting them at the end of March. So what you're seeing is continued growth even after I've done a couple of harvests. That's what's great about these leafy greens. Now, when I say leafy greens, what I mean by that are going to be leaf lettuces, and then things like spinach, arugula, kale, Swiss chard. These are plants that they all grow up from kind of the base of the plant, and the leaves are growing in a way where you can harvest them without making it so that the plant is done and it can continue to produce. This is going to be different than something like a head lettuce, like a romaine, where you wait till the very end of the growing season and then you harvest that whole head of lettuce. Same with like a cabbage. You're not able to harvest individual leaves. You really need to wait for it to form that head to be able to harvest it. So with leafy greens, like I said, you can harvest it throughout the season, and I like to do that to really maximize the amount of space that I have here in my urban backyard, which is not a lot. And I'm going to show you kind of my best practices because there are a couple nuances to know when you're harvesting your leafy greens so that you can make sure you're not damaging your plant and instead doing it in a way that will continue to give you even more harvest until that growing season is over. So you can see if we look down here at the very base, there are multiple stems coming off of the very base of the plant. And as you can see, coming out of the middle are new baby leaves. And so if you just harvest the outer leaves, the most mature ones, which are also the largest ones, this plant will continue to produce these baby leaves and continue to grow as you are harvesting it. And actually, with plants like these, the more you harvest them, the more they are prompted to keep growing. Now, to harvest them, what you're going to do is you're going to harvest the outer leaves first. And you don't want to harvest more than 1/3 of the plant at a time. So for me, I usually just take 1 or 2 leaves off, depending on, what's going on with that individual plant. But like for this one, if I'm looking at this plant, this leaf clearly is one of the bigger ones. So it's going to be one that's been on there the longest. And I'm just going to go down to the base. I'm going to be very careful, and I'm going to snip it in a way that does not disturb those baby leaves. So I'm going to do that for all of these plants, and it really is very easy to figure out which leaves need to be harvested because for this plant as an example, the larger leaves are all sticking out at the top and they're ready to go. So this is mustard spinach I'm going to do that with. Here I also have a variety of a more traditional spinach, which I've actually already been harvesting from. You can see some of those cut stems there. I take the same approach with my kale. So again, these larger leaves are going to be the most mature. They're going to be ready for harvest first, and so I will harvest those. And you can see in the base of them, you have some immature leaves starting to pop up there. You can also see where I've already harvested from this kale. Do the same with Swiss chard, really any leafy green. This is an example of a green that I'm growing that I'm not taking this approach with. So this is endive. And if you've ever purchased endive before, it comes in a head. And so with this one, while I probably could harvest these leaves if I wanted to, what I'm really growing the endive for is that traditional look of the endive with the head of it that you are going to then harvest all at once. And so I'm just going to let it continue to grow until it's fully mature, at which point I will harvest it. That's my method for getting the most out of my leafy greens. I hope you're able to give it a try this growing season.